Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back, everybody. You are now tuned in to High at 9 News. Thank you for joining us, not only to get High at 9 with us once again, but also high noon on the East Coast. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street, and it is Thursday, December 29th. And it is also National Still Need to Do Day. Christmas is over, and you should be feeling calm. What is that subtle itch inside of you? You still need to do something. What is it? It's also International Cello Day for everybody who likes to pull on deep strings, and National TikTok Day, so you can get your checklist and pen out and get ready to tick-tock all the last tasks of the year before the clock strikes midnight on Saturday. Everybody watching, please do remember to like, share, and smack that subscribe button up a little bit so y'all can follow High at 9 News on all social media platforms. We're live on weekdays on YouTube and Twitch, audio only on Clubhouse. But if you do choose the Clubhouse route, you can also participate in the show by raising your hand if you have a brief comment on the story presented. We're going to get started in just a second here, but before we do that, a message from our sponsors.
At True Classic OG, we live by one motto: stay true. We stay true to our legacy cut of True OG that's always fresh, piney, gassy, and delicious. We represent the spirit and hustle and diversity of our great city of Angels, and we stay true to the spirit of this plant, doing everything in-house to ensure that you get the highest quality and consistency with every batch. And that's what made us LA's favorite OG. True Classic OG. Stay true, Los Angeles.
The thoughts, opinions, and shade thrown on the High at 9 News are those of individual speakers and not those of any other speaker or his followers. Statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice, or our speakers make no representation regarding the legal status of any substance in any country, area, territory, or its authorities. The views expressed in this room do not establish any fiduciary responsibility or relationship. Our sponsors do not imply or constitute any endorsement by us or the expression of any opinion whatsoever on the part of any speaker on stage. If you're an easily offended person, we don't care. Coming up first, it is the man, the myth, the legend. He is known in some circles as Kaiser Brose. Down in Mar-a-Lago, he is known as Gucci Blanco. In the mean streets of Detroit, where the Delta 8 hustlers are running rampant underneath those bridges, he is known as White Gucci. But you know who it is, the man coming to the stage. It is the longest continuously operating retailer in the world, Craig. In the world, it is Jason Alexander Beck. What do you have for us today, my man?
Yeah, that's right. It's Thursday. We've made it over the hump, and it's almost Friday. And I'm not sure where Alexander comes from, Rico, but nonetheless, we will continue and proceed on. Today, my story has to do with a story that I covered, I believe it was on Tuesday. That's right, where we talked about a man who's on his dying bed in Kansas and was harassed by law enforcement. And so one of our amazing viewers reached out to me in the DMs and was like, hey, I called that number. I talked to the attorney's office, and they've been getting harassed a lot. And they actually asked if you guys could read this story that kind of counters some of the things that were the statements that were made in the previous article. So, and just remember, this is coming from the law enforcement prosecutorial perspective. okay, because they are saying that inaccurate reporting of a dismissed ticket issued to Hayes cancer patient leads to threats. And just so you know, we do not want anyone to threaten these people, so to say. We just want to make sure that your voices are heard. And sometimes that, I guess, is what it comes down to, I guess. But nonetheless, we are not telling anyone to call and threaten anybody, so we want to make sure that we are clearly stating that. And so now, and also too, with the piece that I covered, it was not an opinion piece, but this article is claiming that the original article, that was based upon that I read, was originally an opinion piece. So that's what they claim. They say an opinion piece printed in the Wichita Eagle on December 24th told the tale of a man with inoperable terminal cancer being the victim of 3 cold-hearted Hayes Police Department officers raiding his hospital room to confiscate the cannabis he was using to find some relief from his symptoms. The opinion piece was later printed as news in outlets across the U.S. and beyond, which is one of the stories that I picked up. But let's continue. But while countless news outlets painted a picture of Hayes officers citing a sick man for criminal activity and forcing him to go before the Hayes Municipal Court for what would be a crime in most of the country, they did so without any attempt to secure accurate information, they claim. Hayes Police Department Chief Don Schreiber said while officers did cite an individual being treated at Hayes Medical Center on suspicion of drug possession on December 19th, a request to pull the ticket was made the same day. The opinion piece was not published until 5 days later on December 24th. He said he likely saw the report during an end-of-shift summary, but became aware of the details only after the opinion piece was published. In a quote, he says, "I wasn't really aware of the incident until I saw an opinion piece out of a Wichita paper talking about the Hayes Police Department raiding a hospital room and an individual with cancer being arrested," Schreiber said. After looking into the case, he described the response captured on the officer's audio recorders. The hospital staff had reported they discovered a patient who was vaping with an electronic device with a controlled substance in the vape machine, and they were concerned, Schreiber said. He said the staff was concerned about the fire risk caused by using a vaping device and the effects of its use on the staff, so they called the police department. I think that's a big overreaction, but nonetheless. 2, not 3, as reported, HPD officers responded to the call, Schreiber said. And I think that's an important thing to note, because anytime you're getting R3 officers, you know something is going down, you're getting searched. You might run across a police call where you have 2 officers that show up because they're in the same vehicle. But anytime you see 2 vehicles that show up at the same spot, you know someone's getting searched. The staff had already had items, Schreiber said, so they collected the items from the staff. They just can't take those illegal drugs and throw them in the drawer and keep them, he said. From there, he said the officer spoke with the individual. In the quotes, they say, "We were in the room just a little over 8 minutes," Schreiber said. "I've listened to the audio recording. The officers were polite, courteous, and showed the individual empathy. He expressed some frustration about the whole incident, and they were sympathetic to that. But they did write him a ticket for the drug violations in accordance with Hayes Municipal Code. The misdemeanor offense used in the citation would result in a fine if he was convicted in Hayes Municipal Court. So no jail time, they're saying. However, that process was stopped shortly after the ticket was issued and long before any story had been written." In a quote, they say they immediately drove back to the office, spoke with the supervisor, and that day sent an email to the prosecutor recommending they dismiss the ticket, Schreiber said. "Based on that recommendation, we pulled the ticket," says the district attorney's office, or the prosecutor's office. He said the officer, in an effort to enforce the laws as written, initially made a judgment call to follow procedure to the letter, a decision that, with guidance from a more seasoned officer, was adjusted. "The officers weren't perfect that day," Schreiber said. "They tried to be, and at the end of the day, they got where they needed to be. But I can't stress enough, the problem is not what they did, it's how we're supposed to enforce the law in this situation." He said it's also important to note that Hayes medical staff were also operating under their policy and state law. And in a quote, "I think that the hospital did everything required for them by the law, Schreiber said. The officer did everything in accordance with Kansas state law, and they didn't violate any department policy or procedures. We put law enforcement officers in a very difficult position, he said. We want to say this is a law, but don't enforce it. That's going to be a challenge for us, they say. And while the goal of the original opinion piece was likely to spur a conversation about medical cannabis use in Kansas, even as regional, national, and international news agencies published the story, no one spoke with a member of the police department leading the inaccuracies being spread. Accuracy wasn't a priority, Schreiber said. They didn't do any investigation into it. They just tried to create discussion. And that lack of accuracy has led to threats against Hayes medical staff and HPD officers. I recognize an opinion editor that his job is to create discussion in this community, he said. When we fail to investigate things and accurately get important facts, that's when it gets tricky. The hospital did exactly what it needed to do in accordance with Kansas law, and the police officers were only acting within the law and the city policy and procedure. They didn't do anything wrong, he says. He acknowledged a call from the opinion editor had been logged, but as it referenced only a misdemeanor crime, and with the timing right before the holiday, the call had not yet been returned. But while the inaccuracies in the media are problematic, Schreiber said the expectation that police officers are expected to equally enforce the law while at the same time being expected to make judgment calls that not everyone may agree with is also a concern. We continue to try and expect police officers to be perfect in an imperfect world, he said. We're ultimately disappointed at the end of the day, end of those days. Those kids went out there and did the best they could based on the laws of the state of Kansas and the city of Hayes, and tried to use their best judgment and show compassion for this individual. We encourage them to use good judgment, he said. We've hired them and we empower them to use good officer discretion, and we want them to do that. They did everything in accordance with the law. That's the problem. But at the end of the day, they got where we want them to be. He said he supports their decisions, and he also says they want to enforce the law equally and hold everybody to the same standard, which I think is important, Schreiber said, and I admire them for that, he says. I support what they did, he said. I support their decisions trying to follow the law of Kansas and Hayes, but also show some compassion and empathy, and they did that. They didn't feel comfortable writing that ticket. They didn't think that it was necessary, so they made that recommendation to pull the ticket after they had written it. While standing by the actions of the officers, he said he was sorry the patient was caught up in the situation. And in a quote, "It is important that we have these discussions," Schreiber said. "It's important that we have clear laws for law enforcement to enforce, and we need to do what we think is best for all of Kansas." Again, the only thing I'm sorry about that day was that the man's got to deal with one of the most private things in his life, and that's no longer possible now. For that, I'm sorry. And that is the quote, or the headline coming out of Kansas as a rebuttal from the prosecutor's office in Kansas. What do you guys have to say about this? This is Jason Beck reporting for High at 9 News.
Damn, Jason. You sure know how to bring the stories.
I try to keep it spicy. Over
It's just so sad. It's just devastating.
Yeah, it's fucked up all around. How many times have the police put out shit without checking their sources? How many times have they put out? How many times have they issued like erroneous reports? And they've gotten their people out in front of the news, where the people who are affected by those stories have not had any chance to rebut that, and their lives are pretty much ruined before they even see the court of law as well. So, I mean, it does go both ways. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it does go both ways on here. And I think it looked at both ways.
It definitely does. I'm a little disappointed in all of these news articles that turned an opinion piece into an actual news piece.
If you look back
Seriously.
at your original story, Jason, which I did, the headline on the original one was "Police Raided Man's Hospital Room," which
Correct.
of course is just clickbait to get people excited. Because if you
Got me excited.
If you go along with what the cops are saying, that the stuff was already confiscated and they just came in and cited the man, that's I still think it would be a good headline for the press to put out, dying man ticketed for cannabis use in a hospital bed. I don't understand why they have to go to the extremes of raided hospital room, because that's not what exactly took place. And in the original story that you have out there, it does not say anywhere that it's an opinion piece. So I can see how
that's what I was saying.
other media could have been misled, or we have to track down the very first original article that came out.
It's a 24-hour news cycle.
That's it. And it makes you, it's just disgusting. As somebody who works in media, working to help to, certainly drive a story and influence a consumer market who's getting what they know about cannabis from their, apps on their phones. It's not right. It's all clickbait. And it's just sad. But I'm like, my emotions are mixed about this story because it is so clickbaity. It was so fucking juicy, for lack of a better term, that this whole bullshit that the police are pulling on patients is being exposed. So maybe we don't like the story, maybe, we want to judge the media makers. Fine. But we're talking about how fucked up the system is. My grandfather, who did 2 tours in Vietnam, okay, badass, shout out Poppy. Couldn't
Shout out Poppy.
Shout out Poppy, man. Couldn't get cannabis. Thank you. Couldn't get cannabis.
Too.
All Poppy wanted to do was have a damn meal and a laugh while he was dying of pancreatic cancer, and and he couldn't get weed and he was afraid, and it's just this whole, it just reminds people that we're living in a police state. We're living in a place where all of our messaging is controlled and cannabis is fucking pawn. So I love this story because we're talking about it.
Yeah, and it's conversation starters, right? And all of our modern wars were all fought off lies, straight up.
Yeah.
Media driven lies.
Iraq. Hold on. What about Iraq?
We can talk about
there
World
are
War
weapons
II.
of mass destruction.
We can talk about World War II and
I'm just talking about when I was alive.
Pearl Harbor and shit. I'm saying, man, like everything, like this is the military-industrial complex, and that's how the shit works. And sometimes it takes a sensational story. Like, I'm not saying that there's anything right with this whole situation. Don't put those words in my mouth. I'm not saying that that's right, but sometimes movements that are sparked necessary movements that need to be made legislatively are done because somebody lied somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Along the way.
We have Leah Patrick up from the Clubhouse audience. Leah, what do you have to say about all this?
First off, good morning, everyone. It's Leah Patrick. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
can you guys hear? All right. Sorry.
Hey, Leah.
It's Leah. Great to see you. First off, Jason and High at 9 News here in Clubhouse, thank you very much for bringing us the news. Second, as a Texas medical cannabis patient myself and my son, if the situation were to happen where they had to go into his hospital room, they would have one mad mama on their hand, and this is cruel and unusual punishment, really, if you think about it. As a Texan, and I've been advocating for many years.
Yes, she has. I can attest.
On behalf of patients and behalf of disabled. This is something that my mind cannot wrap around, how they can go into somebody's hospital room and as a a dying person. Okay, my dad did 2 tours in Vietnam. I grew up Army. I married Air Force. I divorced Air Force. I know the rules. I know the regulations. I know it. But right now, in this day and age, really, we need police officers to go into a hospital room for a dying person. As a terminal patient, my son has been a terminal patient twice. We brought him out of that with the help of the plant. So this is something that we need to change. Texas, vote Governor Abbott out, get rid of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick no relation. And just thank you for always bringing us the news. It's Leah. Great to see you. Great to see everyone. And patience come first in my book. And over a vape pen, this is a crime against humanity. So,
Love you, Leah.
have a great day. Many
Thank
blessings. Much love.
Thank you, Leah.
Love you, Leah. Love you so much. She's such a great Texas advocate.
Yes, without a doubt.
But
Without a doubt.
great points.
Yes, and with all of that, I believe we are going to keep it moving. We have ran out of time on that story. I know it's a very touching tale for a number of people, and so we want to be sympathetic to that and make sure that we're delivering the most accurate news when it comes to this story as well. So thank you all for entertaining me with that. And coming up next, it is the dope dad himself. That's right, Rico Lamitte. When he is not babysitting his child, you can find him babysitting grown-ass adults because they all still wear diapers too. That's right. They still use wipes and Depends, and whether they're pull-ups or pull-downs, he's down to help them all out and give them a helping hand. That's right. It is the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte.
Man, what the fuck is a pull down? I like that one though. All right,
you know, when you pull ups, you pull them down too, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to go. You just make a mess in your pants.
I guess it all depends. It all depends. All right, so my story today, I'd like to spark a little bit of a conversation because we do have a little extra time today. I want to spark a little conversation with my story. So it's actually from Vox Media's Mary Jane Gibson. Is legal weed doomed to be run by big business? Pro marijuana activists, advocates have become surprising foes of some efforts to legalize, and here's why. Is it possible to be truly pro-legalization and anti-regulation at the same time? It's an awkward position many of us find ourselves in daily, and the fatigue is starting to kick in heavy. 2013 was the first time a majority of Americans supported legalizing cannabis. A Pew survey revealed 53% of it were in favor at the time of legalization. But today, U.S. support's grown to 88%, according to the firm's April 2021 survey, and with 21 states having new rec laws on the books, in addition to Biden's announcement of support in October, it's only a matter of time before federal government repeals cannabis prohibition. As Gibson points out in her article, in practice, legalization is proven to be piecemeal and often disappointing for reformers. Take my home state of Virginia, just 4 cannabis companies are licensed to serve. All 4 are owned by non-Virginia conglomerates, while small businesses and local entrepreneurs are mostly shut out from participating in the industry. When President Biden announced he'd be taking steps to overhaul America's marijuana laws and to pardon the convicted of simple marijuana possession at the federal level, most of America rejoiced. On the surface, it seemed that advocates were finally getting through to lawmakers after decades of fighting. But we all know, and we all knew at the time, it really was, and we've been calling him out daily for a possible rescheduling, which would hand the industry to Big Pharma. And the whole pardon thing, let me start on that bullshit. U.S. legal sales, largely driven by adult use markets, are expected to top $33 billion by the end of this year. Cannabis remains illegal under federal law, and thousands of people are still in prison for marijuana-related offenses, the majority of which are nonviolent. This leads to my major question: who will actually benefit from a federally regulated industry? Cannabis, rescheduled under Controlled Substance Act, leads to regulating marijuana as medicine, allowing Big Pharma to control that market. Cannabis legalized, cannabis legalized at a federal level leads to conglomerates like Amazon quickly stepping in to dominate on a national adult use industry level. Per the article, some activists have already begun to attempt to slow or stop legalization efforts altogether. As recently chronicled in the midterm elections in November, progressive advocates opposed Arkansas legalization measure issue 4, funded mainly by medical industry, claiming that it would have allowed existing medical marijuana businesses to control the adult use market and reward industry backers of the measure by limiting new competitors. Critics also highlighted the measure's lack of social equity provisions intended to ensure that people of color, and those with convictions of marijuana offenses would be afforded an opportunity to participate in the legal industry. Issue 4 would not have expunged records for past cannabis offenses, instead funneling a percentage of tax proceeds to law enforcement. In the end, even though one survey showed that most Arkansanians or Arkansas voters favored legalization in September, 56% would have voted, actually ended up voting against the measure on election day. Caps on cannabis business licenses like the one proposed in Arkansas lawmakers are growing in popularity and limit entry to the few who are able to secure expensive permits, ceding the lion's share of cannabis industry to large companies and multi-state operators. And so let's talk about Shailene. She said that if the federal government legalizes cannabis, lawmakers should be aware of monopolization by national corporations. And she also authored a paper on preventing monopolies in the marijuana market, outlining how domination of big business is a threat to existing cannabis industry. Right? But will her pleas, which most of us agree with, lie on deaf ears? Big tobacco, alcohol, pharma, and tech have already been laying the groundwork to take over, and they've only ramped up their efforts to support legislation as exhausted advocate voices have begun to wane. They've got the political clout and the business acumen necessary for long-term success. So when we all take a half-second step back to look at the big picture, is the fight for small operator victories just a lesson in futility we're doomed to lose? Artist and activist Brian Box Brown is the creator of Legalization Nation, and he argues in the article, lawmakers can craft effective cannabis policies, particularly when they listen to activists rather than lobbyists and special interest groups. We need to recognize the things that are working and stop catering to corporate wishes. This is a brand new industry. It will probably be corrupted in time, but we don't have to start with corruption. While I do agree with Brown, I also question the will of those of us remaining, continuing to fight. I'm in the trenches of this shit because I love it, and I'll be damned if I don't die on the battlefield. But at the end of the day, when nobody's willing to cut off the head of our enemy, when we don't have the necessary weaponry to take out political corruption and crony capitalism, we can celebrate the little bullshit battles won here and there, but how the fuck are we going to win this war? That's a question I got for all of y'all. I'm Rico Lamitte, dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News. What do you guys have to say about this one? Let's open up mic.
I mean, what do
Great
you think?
conversation. It's great.
You asked the question of who's going to benefit from a federal regulated market. The patients are going to benefit. I don't care what you say. I don't care if big pharma is involved. People need drugs and they need the healing power of this plant. And patients
have been benefiting for decades, for generations.
Not enough patients. No, not enough.
Because
when you
of
have to move to another part of the country to get your medicine, when you have to go in and act like a thief when you're when you're a dying man in Kansas and you're getting raided by the
Gretchen
cops
dropped the F-bomb.
Because of fucking propaganda put out by this government.
This ain't about propaganda. It's about it being illicit. It's about it being illegal.
Why is it illegal?
Who's going to benefit are the patient. What do you mean? Why is it illegal?
Yeah, why is it illegal? Why was it prohibited?
It's illegal because of propaganda.
All right. If you guys want to pretend that an illicit market is the way to get people the medicine they need and for black people to get ahead in this country, I don't think that's what he's saying. You keep doing that. Because that is the most ridiculous argument in the world. And for the people out there who are crying social equity isn't working, blah, 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 social equity was never going to work. It is
cannabis.
Bullshit.
Why is
no,
cannabis?
Rico, you of all people say social equity is just a buzzword. It's not going to work. You can't force banks to give people money. You can't force investors to give people money. Just because you give them a license doesn't mean it's going to work. It's all bullshit. We need to acknowledge that it's all bullshit and try and actually fix the problems. I don't have the answers. I don't think we do have the answers here. But all I know is that patients would benefit from a federally legal market.
Patients have been benefiting for generations from an illegal market, and the only reason it is illegal is because of government propaganda and racism from the fucking jump.
We have Dr. Felicia up from the Clubhouse audience. What do you have to say on this, Dr. Felicia?
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm gonna try not to cry, but this is an issue that's very close to my heart because I know that people have used this plant safely for thousands of years. And we're just making a big screw up of everything, trying to overturn this prohibition. Congress made this plant illegal. Congress needs to make it legal again and stop complicating matters. Yes, people need access to clean medicine, but I think that can be done without having a bunch of monopolies. I don't know how you can turn back the clock hands, but monopolies have always been an issue in America. You know, legislation has been passed to minimize them in the 1800s. It just takes people with courage to do it again. There's too much greed and corporate misconduct and profits over people. I don't know how we're going to get back to it, but it is not the first time that we had monopolies. But we've got to stand up and make it fair for everyone. And I'll stop there because, like I said, this is very close to my heart, and I'm only about trying to get safe medicine to everyone. And it just breaks my heart when we have all this corporate monopolies and just dark money, and it's just a travesty.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Felicia.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes,
Thank
Dr.
you,
Felicia.
Dr. Felicia.
Appreciate that.
What do you think, Liz?
I just, I see it from both sides. I'm trying to hear and learn every angle, because I'm a Texan. I'm here having to, plan my work schedule around our 140 days of the Texas legislative session. I'm trying to get Texans to vote. Because I do believe that the government needs to acknowledge these wrongs. I do believe the government needs to provide a platform for this industry, if you want to call it that, but I want to call it a medicine, for this medicine to thrive. We're Texans. I mean, every year, and maybe it's a joke, maybe it's not, or every legislative session, there is a state representative that puts forth a bill to be voted on in the House to secede from the country. And so this is tradition. And ironically, the representative in my own district was the one who did that this last legislative session. So, I just have to remember that, this issue is not top of mind for most people. Because they're playing their own game, and we have to force them to see. Therefore, we have to force them to change the laws. Like, it's big. It's a lot to unpack for me. So I'm just trying to listen and learn, but we have to change these laws in Texas. Y'all can do whatever the fuck you want federally, I guess. I mean, fuck the feds. I don't care. I don't think it's ever going to happen. Ever, never, never. You have to roll back too many things. There's too many wrongs. There's still over 40,000 people in jail right now for nonviolent cannabis convictions in this country. It's like, what are we doing? That's crazy. So my mind is on Texas, and I'm trying to learn from these other states and how they did it so that we can get a legal market, because we grow fire.
Jason,
Hold on, you guys grow fire. Hold on a second. Whoa,
yes,
whoa.
we do.
I don't know of anyone growing any fire in Texas.
Oh, I know you don't, because it doesn't leave Texas. I'm so sorry.
We
can only grow so much fire. Okay, I'm not saying we're like, man, we're growing warehouses of it. That's what you guys do in California. Have fun with that, because in my story, it's going to talk about how the Sinaloa cartel is going to be competing with y'all in Cali. All right.
Right.
Anyway.
Jason, as a legal operator, Jason, what are your thoughts on this? Is the overall industry doomed to be taken over by monopolies very soon?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it excuse me, a monopoly. I would call it more of an oligopoly. And that's how most industries operate, is in an opogolyptic type of fashion. Did you like how I did that there?
Onomatopoeia right there.
Yeah. Mecca lecca high, Mecca high me ho. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So I think a lot of that is ultimately inevitable as we continue, because there's always going to be businesses that are buying up businesses, and there's always going to be people with the entrepreneurial dreams to get into the space and try to do something, whether it's in cannabis or just being an entrepreneur in general. And so I think there's a fine balance of corporateness that has to be adhered to, on top of allowing the entrepreneurial spirit to make sure that it's always burning bright for anyone that wants to carry that torch. It's a very delicate balance. All right, but It's a very
So
delicate
you're saying
balance.
it's inevitable. It's going to happen.
Everything is inevitable. Yes, it's like there's going to be people that start businesses and succeed and are able to become a part of or be a part of with MSOs, and there's other people that are going to have businesses that are going to fail, and there's even some MSOs that are going to fail, and that's just is what is, and it's all about making sure that you're staying true to your core beliefs, making sure that you're running a lean, mean, cash making machine, and
Right.
you know what I'm saying, and at the same time making sure that you're not sacrificing quality for quantity over when you're trying to make sure that you're helping out sick people.
Yeah, I think it is definitely a personal choice that
Said
the consumers and the people have a lot more power than they are led on to believe in this vaccine. But there's certain things that we talked about like offline that I'm not at liberty of saying while we're on air because I don't want to get us deplatformed. But just keep it at this: no great change throughout the history of humanity has ever happened without bloodshed.
That part's true.
No,
That
of course not.
that part is pretty true, and there's been plenty of bloodshed shed in the cannabis space, and I've witnessed a lot of it over my years, as a lot of people have too in our chat that are watching along with us as well. And so, in regards with all that, I think we should pay a quick bill, and we can get right back to some news.
Oh yeah.
You want to grow some of the best weed in the world? Then you must start with the best genetics in the world. Go to www.dnagenetics.shop to order regular, feminized, or autoflower beans. All of your favorite DNA genetics cultivars such as Kosher Kush, Skywalker Kush, and oh yeah, Chocolate Truffle Shuffle. Boasting more cannabis awards for their award-winning genetics than any other company in the world. Remember to go to www.dnagenetics.shop to see why our terps don't lie. Flying into LAX and you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX, located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Always make LAXCC your first stop when you touch down in LA and score like a winner. And don't forget to tell them I sent you and mention you'd like to get high at 9 for 10% off your full order.
This feminized Lone Star State Advocate and storyteller is the co-founder of Grow House Media, pumping out some of the most entertaining industry-specific content I've seen coming from a non-legal state. Period. She can be found weekly on her podcast by the same damn name, Feminized, where she interviews some of the dopest women in the game. And she's all about gifting, giving, and living life this holiday season. Y'all know who it is. Coming to the stage next, it is Liz Grow.
Rico, thank you. I love that intro. I am a gifter and a giver. And I'm here to give you a little tip. Okay, California. As I said earlier, the Sinaloa drug cartel is coming for your weed business. All right. This story is one of the most interesting stories that I have read in a long time. I'm just going to dive right to it. It is narco juniors have big plans for marijuana, and they're borrowing ideas from California's dispensaries like Oswego. In Culhuacan, Sinaloa, someone walking around the Mexican city of Culhuacan, the capital of Sinaloa, state and home turf of the cartel of the same name, could be forgiven for thinking marijuana had been legalized. 10 years ago, weed was still being sold in dark alleys or delivered by shady dealers in old cars. But Culhuacan now has almost as many marijuana dispensaries as Los Angeles, even though an ounce of weed could still land you in jail in Mexico. Since U.S. states started legalizing marijuana, prompting a decline in Mexican weed being smuggled north, members of the Sinaloa cartel have been looking for ways to adapt and take back the business that helped their predecessors build globe-spanning operations. The key to their new business, according to a Sinaloa cartel operative who spoke with The Insider, is marketing. And I quote, "We don't want to be associated with the shady drug dealers selling weed in the streets out of a window. Look at the gringos. They're selling the same product in their beautiful stores. That's what we want for the organization." A Sinaloa drug cartel member described its by many as the godfather who is in charge of funding the new weed industry. So we're hearing from the godfather here, you guys. The organization, a term that members prefer over cartel, restructured its weed business and began a trial and error phase in Culhuacan at the direction of Ivan Archivaldo Guzman Salazar, one of Guzman's sons with his first wife, according to the Godfather. Wow, that was a lot. Ivan and his brothers, known as Los Chapitos, and members of a larger group of young cartel scions, known as Narco Juniors, have made Culhuacan their stronghold and focal point of their efforts to expand into the marijuana business. Fun fact, Culhuacan is one of the capitals of it's where all the fentanyl is coming from, all the deadly fentanyl, and that's where the Sinaloa drug cartel has made lots and lots of money. Anyway, back into the story. The juniors put a lot of money into this, but more than money, they were extremely cautious of the people they relied on, the Godfather said. After El Chapo's extradition to the U.S. in 2017, Ivan put together a group of 5 to 6 men who had all of his trust to serve as godfathers for a new marijuana business model. Their role is to channel funds to a larger group of independent marijuana producers to experiment with strains, seeds, methods, and brands until the organization finds a brand to compete or even overshadow the weed produced in the U.S. Okay, this is the goal. They're coming for you. The Sinaloa cartel began recruiting young producers who do not identify as members of the organization and have 3 main characteristics: their passion for weed, their knowledge of the weed production process, and they have lived in the U.S. state where weed is legal, according to the Godfather. Jason, they may be coming for you.
I mean, I doubt it.
Okay, they may be coming for you. Now, the Godfather asked me straight up if I really knew that what I was doing, and I confessed I had already started a small greenhouse for my own consumption, but that if he were to trust me enough to fund me for a bigger one, I could make the best weed in Sinaloa. One of the local producers who had lived in California told the Insider, I mean, this man is dreaming big. The producer is a 31-year-old man, originally from Culhuacan. He allowed Insider into one of his greenhouses. Okay, it's a state-of-the-art indoor operation with over 200 small marijuana plants. The plants were cared for by heat and lights with security cameras and music running 24/7. What we're trying to do is very simple: to produce the best weed in the world, like Jason Beck smokes. We buy weed from the U.S. and Europe and from Canada, and then we mix them and experiment with them until we get new strains original to Sinaloa. After the plants are fully grown, the weeds are produced, blah, blah, blah. You guys understand the story here. They're selling everything. Pre-rolls is the biggest seller. They made around $400,000 in pre-rolls last year alone. This interview is fucking awesome. It's very, very long, and it talks all about all the things that they're doing in Mexico. Can we just stop the story? I'm Liz Groh, and I'm reporting for High at 9 News from Texas. Can we just stop the story and talk about how ridiculous this is?
I don't think it's that ridiculous. I mean, he wants to take over the weed industry.
It's like everyone else, dude. It's like, yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Seriously, I've heard this story a million times. It just makes it interesting that it's a drug cartel and it's in Mexico where it's still very much illegal.
All right,
like the world doesn't get any weirder.
I mean, this might be a little bit of a stretch, but stay with me here.
Okay.
Oh boy.
America's run by government cartels. If they're claiming to be advocates and activists too, like how is that any different?
No, it's not. I'm just laughing at it all, Rico.
Right.
I'm not comparing. I'm not saying we're better. I'm fucking laughing. I'm like, dude, the cartels are even like, I had the dream to do the best weed in Sinaloa. You know, it's like, that's what so many growers.
I get the funniest vision in my head when
and
you
it's like
say
it's
that.
a drug cartel and it's an illegal country and it's like this is so fucked up. Like this is a money-making enterprise. Medicine. I hope they grow the best weed too, and I hope I get to smoke it. I hope they don't kill me for making fun of them and dashing their dreams. But the fact is, this shit is hard no matter who's doing it, you know. And it's a, you know, or live organic thing. It's a medicine. It's fucking, the odds are stacked against you anyway. And now you're like, I'm in a drug cartel. Imagine if you get spider mites, man.
Right. So
Next dream.
I've made this argument like for years now, like on the legal side of the industry. And I've always said, man, like if you want cannabis to actually thrive, if you want on an industrial stage, you need to free all the kingpins and put them in charge of these MSOs.
Yes.
Straight up, you need
I
to
mean-
be putting them at the head of these major countries if you want people to actually thrive from this industry. You want things to be run correctly. I mean, take all the murder and shit. Like,
Yes, that's what I'm
the
saying. No, I
inflation.
totally agree. Like, I believe the
They're
same
ones who know how to
thing.
run this shit.
I want to know how to run it. I want access.
I mean,
am a consumer.
so
I
here's
want
the whole
cheap
thing.
access and easy
Here's the whole thing with
access to
Mexico,
high
okay?
quality products.
Mexico is already at a very, very big competitive advantage when it comes to cannabis production. They can pay people far less wages,
Cool.
and if they built their infrastructure properly, they could grow U.S. grade quality indoor high grade flower out there as well, because the environment is set up for them to be able to succeed like that. Whether or not they're going to have the power infrastructure, whatnot, or the right infrastructure as far as buildings and airflow and all that, yada yada yada, water, all that's a whole nother tale. And but they can do that through proper infrastructure, so it can be done. It's just whether or not they can do it right now today.
Sure.
And there's one other big factor at play that people need to know about this when it comes to Mexico and their production of cannabis, is that in USMCA, which is NAFTA, the new NAFTA bill, North American Free Trade Agreement, cannabis is listed in USMCA, and there is a 0 import tax into the US from Mexico. There is a 6% excise tax for imported weed that goes into Canada, but there is no other import tax involved in any of that at all.
I like that.
Jason,
I
you hit the nail on the head with that one. And what I was going to say is, we're already set up to lose the hemp industry to Mexico immediately. We're already losing that fucking game because America doesn't want to build shit. We want to consume shit.
Yeah, agreed. We need to bring manufacturing
someone else to
back to America. We need to be producing majority of our own products.
And that's the next major "they took our jobs" bullshit argument that everybody's gonna be making, because nobody wants to fucking make shit here. Nobody has the skills to fucking make shit here because they're going to liberal arts colleges. They're not going to fucking trade schools. They can't work with their fucking hands. But you wonder where all the fucking jobs are going. You want all this fucking money, but you want everything to be made everywhere else. Like,
it's this entitlement generation.
It is what it is. It is
That's
what
right.
it is. When it comes
Steve,
to
you're
cartels,
right. Better Mexico than China. You're right about that part.
When it comes to cartels, though, I
Really?
would put
Yeah.
my money on. I would put my money on our cannabis, then cartel cannabis, and them figuring that out, just because of the way I think they've done business. I mean, historically speaking, right? I mean, we're talking about something that's not even legal in Mexico, and it's not about whether the government moves; it's about whether the cartels move, and that's what we're talking about. You know,
does the legality even matter?
It's all cannabis. It's all cannabis sativa L at the end of the day.
Yeah,
but nonetheless,
I wish they could grow it, and I wish we could all smoke it. I wish we all had access to the cheapest. You know,
we
just have to get people voting.
No, we do not want access to the cheapest. We want access to the best in the world.
To the best in the world.
That is never going to be the cheapest.
No,
That's just not how it works.
Never.
All right. Coming up next, we have a political. Thank you so much for that story, Liz. That was fantastic discussion, and we're going to see what happens with ongoing Mexico boof weed.
Yes.
But coming up next, she's a political strategist by day and a baker by night. A true female multitasker who can not only bake up a storm, but also knows how to make the sausage on Capitol Hill. She's the founder of Panoptic Strategies and our very own Washington Insider. Taking off the apron and coming on up, it is none other than the Gretchen Gailey.
Good afternoon from DC, and hello, comrades. I do know a few things about cannabis, like that Jason Beck owes me $100. My headline today, it's a coming. At 4:20 today, what to expect when New York's first recreational cannabis dispensary opens in Manhattan. Adults will soon legally be able to buy recreational marijuana in New York. The state's first cannabis dispensary will open its doors today in Manhattan. CBS 2 spoke with the nonprofit set to make the first sale. Wednesday marked the low before the high at Housing Works Cannabis Company in the East Village. Starting at $4.20 on Thursday, adults aged 21 and over will legally be able to buy recreational marijuana. Everything from wrapped to pre-wrapped, edibles, just a full array at different price points, Housing Works CEO Charles King said. Tomorrow we expect a very long line down the block, but after that we will be able to serve people pretty expeditiously. King joined CBS News New York ahead of the grand opening. Housing Works is known for serving homeless New Yorkers and people living with HIV and AIDS. He said the nonprofit had been working on getting a license to sell recreational pot for the last 3 years. He said, we serve overwhelmingly a population that has been criminalized by the war on drugs, and we felt it was appropriate for us to be able not only to sell cannabis, but use that as an opportunity to hire and employ people who just as involved due to use and possession of cannabis. Everything is grown in New York and produced in New York, Housing Works Creative Director Elizabeth Koch said. So far, the New York State Cannabis Control Board has approved 36 adult retail licenses. Housing Works will be the very first to open its door, an exciting prospect for many in the area. One person said, I'm a chronic pain sufferer, and I know that edibles theoretically help with chronic pain, so if something could give me some relief, I'm happy to try it. Another has told us, I think New York has needed it for a long time, and we're just catching up. Another person told us, I'm here for it. I'm surprised that it's the first. If something that has been a part of our culture in the city for a long time, and now we get to use it responsibly and not be secretive about it, Koch said. The state says the new year will bring several new dispensaries. Trevette Knowles from the New York Office of Cannabis Management said, I can already tell you and confirm that a couple other licensees are working to open their dispensaries in January, nonprofits and individual licensees and qualified businesses. So don't be confused if you've already seen smoke shops advertising weed. What we're seeing is an influx, a lot of times, people from outside of the state, of people trying to expose public confusion and open up these storefronts. And it really is a matter of short-term gain because they are a threat of preventing themselves from attaining a future license. Critics, meanwhile, have worried legalizing pot will bring an increase in crime and traffic accidents and a decrease in quality of life. King argues regulating marijuana will help control all of the illegal spots that have opened. Currently, cannabis sellers aren't paying taxes. We'll be paying taxes to the city, the state, and the federal government. So legalizing cannabis and bringing in a regulated market is a way to improve the system overall for everyone. Proceeds will go directly back into the nonprofit. So what's next for the budding industry? Cannabis delivery has been approved, and the state expects to start issuing licenses for weed delivery in the next month. So Jason Beck, I will take whatever form you'd like to provide it in, cash, Venmo, check, whatever you like. You owe me $100 as of 4/20 today.
I'll smoke to that. I'll smoke to that. I was witness.
Big shout out to the New York market, and big shout out to all the politicians getting their fucking 15 seconds in for the industry's greatest photo op of all time. All time.
No lie.
I already talked to some folks from the New York Cannabis Control Board this morning. Everyone is very excited. They are hopeful that it will go off flawlessly. So I'm just saying, let's cross our fingers that this won't be a complete disaster at 4/20.
But it's going to be a complete disaster.
Day.
Let me tell you something. Something's going to happen. Like the power is going to go out in New York City. The internet's not going to work. The POS system's going to be down. They're not going to be able to make a sale. Something is going to happen because I'm going to tell you what, this program is jinxed from the beginning.
And you know what? And you know what? When the lights come back on,
why are you such a hater?
I'm not a hater. I'm just 100% in reality. Okay, and these people are not living in reality.
No, you're not. You're not living in reality. New Yorkers sell shit.
These people are destined to fail.
The weed is going to flow.
Take all major credit cards. He's going to take all major forms of payment. It's going to be Steve D'Angelo out there, like swiping cards, doing his thing, because you know what? The godfather of the game is there. And Gotham.
Oh, God.
Taking care.
Here we go.
And I do like the plug in the story that all their weed is New York grown and they are ready to support.
That's not a selling point. That is not a selling point. That's a get the hell out of here point. Get out of here. That you're trying to make New York an Appalachia for cannabis. Get the hell out of here. That is ridiculous.
I like that. Appalachia.
Yeah.
It's
You
an
see
apple.
how I did that there?
Yeah, I like
Yes.
that. I like
I have
that.
a question. So how did they grow it? So they're acknowledging that it was
all
grown
boof.
illegally?
This is all boof weed that the hemp processors produced. That's all outdoor trash weed that's been sitting around in crates for the last year and a half that they're selling people, marked as this is medicine. Get out of here. Get
Well, I mean,
out of here. This is
are they
this is
still
going to
calling it
be.
medicine
Hold on
if
a
it's
second. I was
recreational?
watching. There was a number of different different IG lives that were going live inside the store, and they're still like setting
Quote
everything
them,
up. They got all the press cameras all over there. It's going to be like a whole big old
Someone's going to shoot
circle
it in
jerk.
sepia.
It's
It's going to be like they're going to play on the New York thing so hard.
Jason,
It's going to be a
Jason,
big old.
go ahead.
frenzy.
I'm ready for you. Give me a little
It's going to
something.
be
$100. You
a
can
big
scan it right
old
here.
giant circle jerk. But here's the whole thing about all of this. Okay, this business is out there already professing that 51% of their profits is going to go into their nonprofit.
Yep.
Well, let me tell you something. That's 51% of negative, okay? Because you're not going to have any profits in this New York market when you have such a robust illicit trap market sitting right outside with actually quality weed and not a year and a half old outdoor boof weed.
How much of their revenue is going into their nonprofit? That's what I want to know.
I'm sorry. Where are you coming up with this 50% of the proceeds?
51%. I watched them on an IG live this morning. Their spokesperson talking about this.
Their press release. Their press release of the it says
facts.
All
this is facts.
all the profit is going
to fail.
The profit is going to directly to their nonprofit. So
we shall see. But I would say 100%. Right here, Jason Beck, 100% into
That's the math I'm interested in.
Well, I'll tell you what. Ooh. Man, this is good weed I'm smoking, man.
It doesn't sound like you're smoking
on
New York right there,
man. Send some.
I do not
doesn't sound like New York is smoking on.
But I will tell you what, Gretchen, I have a $100 bill right here, and I would write on it, but that would be federally illegal, and I only break one federal law at a time, and that's selling weed.
I hope you have a black light and one of them pens. You got one of them with the marker pens on it.
But I have that for you. If there is an actual sale, I want to see it, and I want to see it like actually happen. There's got to be a news story all about it, so I know what you're going to be covering tomorrow. Okay, and we want to see some video of the actual sale, thing. I want to see what the receipt says. I want to see what the person bought.
Lord.
No paywall, no pay gate.
This is the beginning of backpedaling Jason for 2023. That's your new name.
No, this is not.
Tables are turned.
I'm going to tell you something. I was a football player in high school, so I know how to backpedal. Okay,
I only got one leg right now. I only got one good leg, Jason. You got to pick up the slack, bro.
Hold on.
Hold on. The first sale was made.
I always have only one good leg. That doesn't even make sense.
I got three,
and I'm still backpedaling with just one.
Will Gretchen win $100 from Jason?
Yeah, Gretchen. Hold on, but I love that Nick is like, I'll deliver it.
You're gonna owe me another $100 for our good old pardon bet. I can't wait to collect on that one too.
Yeah, Massachusetts is gonna have a party. Just watch. I got word on the streets coming out of the Capitol. They're doing a mass pardon. Not to mention too, I really won that bet. Honestly, because Oregon had a mass pardon, and the governor called it a mass pardon. It is a mass pardon. It is a mass. That's a mass pardon. As far as what they were concerned, it's the same thing. Yes, it is.
As far as you're concerned,
you're trying to catch me up on a technicality, the same type of technicalities that you accuse me of trying to portray on you.
Breaking news.
So if that isn't the pot calling the kettle black,
everybody, we have breaking news.
Technicalities.
I don't worship anyone. I wish I died.
Yeah, but I googled it. I googled it and I didn't see it.
1 second, everybody. We have breaking news. 88% of the audience says that Gretchen will get $100 from Jason. The people have spoken, Jason Beck. What do you have to say?
Well, that's because 88% of the audience knows that I actually pay my bills.
I can't wait.
I didn't even vote either. Rolled up pennies or what?
Oh man. I wish I would have known about this poll. I would have hopped in there.
I just voted.
I would have voted.
So
yeah.
Shout out to democracy.
All right. So just get your wallet ready, okay?
I don't carry a wallet.
I want video of Jason Beck paying his debts.
You know this.
I know.
You know
Get your
that I do not
popcorn
carry a
ready.
wallet.
Big congrats to New York. You know, as nefarious.
Really? Congrats to
Hey,
New
hey,
York.
hey,
Congrats
give him
congrats
congratulations.
on staging publicity
Con- con-
stunts.
yo,
You're so
yo,
jealous.
we're gonna talk about the moon.
Oh,
We're gonna talk about the
you're
moon
so
landing too.
jealous.
Talk about the moon landing as well. We can talk about-
Obviously, everyone in New York just landed on the moon today because they think that this is fucking really gonna work.
Oh, shit.
I'm praying for you, Jason. I'm
Just-
praying for you.
Just spin that reel.
Let's take him to the outro, Jason. Like,
I
Be
mean,
ready. $100.
Huh?
Come on. Man up.
What?
Man up. $100. You can handle it.
man,
Pull him down,
I'm
Jason.
gonna once
Pull
I
him
see a
down,
receipt and I see a real sale happening.
drop the depends.
Yeah, and a lawyer friend of mine is representing them, and so he did tell me that they were doing their best to make sure that they had product for sale. So I assume that they're going to. But I'm gonna tell you what: if the power goes out or the internet goes out and they can't make a sale, shit ain't happening today.
A
You're
wise
not gonna
man-
win your bet.
A wise man named Dale once told me, "Quit puckering your butthole."
I bet. That was a great show. Thank you all for getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big thank yous to all of our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry, especially with what is developing in New York today. Thank you to all of our haters for talking about us, because the fact that we have these most amazing studio buildings for lease, rent-free, and we just have all of our friends over and party in your heads rent-free all day, every day. So thank you so much for our place. Huge thank you to True Classic, LAXCC, and DNA Genetics for keeping us going with all of the craziness as well. Thank you to our correspondents for being extremely amazing today. And thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this, because whether or not you call it weed or call it hemp, it's all the same thing in the Controlled Substances Act. That's right. Thank you so much, Adam over there holding it down for us with this engineering tactics and his audio expertise. And thank you all for helping us create this cannabis miniverse, and getting high at 9 with us is America's #1 daily cannabis news show. Run it, Adam.